Hi, Zoe Tuck here, and this is the beginning of the next video for the Queer Phenomenology class, fall 2020. Um, and this is for chapter one, which is titled Orientations Toward Objects. And once again, the purpose of this video is just to sort of summarize some of the main points. It follows pretty closely Ahmed's text with a few little asides by me. And so that it'll be easier to upload, I'm breaking it into 10-minute chunks. Okay, so this chapter starts with a quote from Husserl's Ideas, and he plays a major role in this chapter, along with some other of the canonical phenomenologists, Heidegger, Merleau-Ponty, and then also Marx comes into play a little bit, and then also feminist thinkers like Iris Marion Young. This chapter has tables, tables, and more tables. We will think of them, we'll think of people thinking of them, and we'll see them and touch them in our mind's eyes. So starting with page 25, Ahmed kicks us off with the question, what objects appear within phenomenology as objects that the reader can in turn apprehend? So this is, what are the objects that are present in phenomenological texts? And on 26, in looking at Husserl, Ahmed talks about how he's not necessarily recording an experience he actually had. Like this is Wednesday, I was sitting at my desk, but it's more of an as if. As if I think as if I was sitting at my desk, this is what I would think of. Let's see, she says, the field of background intuition against which the object becomes posited as given, and here she's talking about paper, provides for Heidegger, for example, the very stuff of writing, the very materials out of which phenomenology is born. And then through this, Ahmed asks, how does the orientation of the paper, which is on the writing table, also function as an orientation device, which both shows the direction of phenomenology and also takes it in a certain direction. So these are terms that will be important for this chapter. Background intuition, and we'll talk about that more, and then an orientation device, something that helps us conceptually orient ourselves. So moving on to 27, by showing how phenomenology faces a certain direction, which depends on the relegation of other things to the background. And again, this is that background intuition. I consider how phenomenology may be gendered as a form of occupation. And this is a major focus for Ahmed in this chapter. And this kicks off the section Objects of Perception, which starts with the premise that consciousness is embodied, sensitive, and situated. And that's something that I hope that we talk about. I like that description. Ahmed gets it from Franz Brentano. And she observes that perception is a way of facing something, and that the object is an effect of towardness. It is the thing toward which I'm directed, and in which being is posited as a thing, as being something or another for me, takes me in some direction rather than others. So this is, we're getting into, again, this idea of objects not just floating in space, but that they are objects towards which we are facing, or away from which we're facing. So Ahmed talks about how we don't merely perceive things, we take a position on them, which in turn gives us a position. So not just in the sense of I'm facing this computer recording a video, but I also have an attitude towards this computer. I might like it or dislike it, or wish it were faster, or wish that, something like that. And so she talks about Husserl's concept of twofold directedness, and describes it thusly. First, I am directed towards an object, that is, I'm facing it, and then I take a direction toward it. For instance, I might or might not admire it. And this is interesting because it's stated as sequential, but it actually, in practice, I mean, if we think about our experiences, and I'm curious to know if this holds true for people. I think it holds true for me that this happens pretty much simultaneously. It doesn't. I'm not aware of it being in a sequence. If it is in a sequence, I see the thing, and I have feelings about it, and those happen pretty much at the same time. And here we also get, on page 28, Husserl's quote, which I think was quoted in the introduction, and I feel like this quote is endlessly generative for Ahmed, about letting his attention wander from his writing table, which he's facing, back towards the things that he feels like he has to bracket in order to do the work of phenomenology. Those very things that Ahmed would like to take out of brackets and recenter, so as to queer it. But for Husserl, at least, it is from the writing table that the world unfolds. So I made a note to myself to just go ahead and read the Husserl quote, since it's so important to Ahmed, and such a useful passage that she thinks through. So here's this quote from Husserl. For me, real objects are there, definite, more or less familiar, agreeing with what is actually perceived without being themselves perceived or even intuitively present. I can let my attention wander, and hang on to that word there. I can let my attention wander from the writing table I have just seen and observed, through the unseen portions of the room, behind my back to the veranda, into the garden, to the children in the summer house, and so forth, to all the objects concerning which I precisely know that they are there and yonder in my immediate co-perceived surroundings. So, let's see. Yeah, wander is a key word here, and Ahmed takes it up on page 29. Quote, to wander can mean to ramble without certain course, to go aimlessly, to take one direction without intention or control, to stray from a path, or even to deviate in conduct or belief. And then Ahmed issues one potential definition of queer phenomenology, and there's some defining that happens, both of phenomenology for Ahmed in this chapter, and then also of orientation, which gets defined in a couple different ways. But so this is her definition of queer phenomenology. A queer phenomenology, I wonder, might be one that faces the back, which looks behind phenomenology, which hesitates at the sight of the philosopher's back. I love that. I love that. Of Husserl's imagined wandering through his domestic world, Ahmed writes, how I long for him to dwell there by lingering on the folds of the materials that surround him. That is, rather, a desire to read about the particularity of the objects that gather around the writer. It is also a desire to imagine philosophy as being here, with the pen and paper, and with the body of the philosopher, who writes insofar as he is at home, and insofar as home provides a space in which he does his work. And personally, I like that Ahmed includes her own longing as her directedness towards phenomenology as her object. We look towards an object, or we turn towards an object, and then we take a position on it, as she describes. And her position on this brief moment where Husserl talks about what's on his writing table, and also what's behind him. Ahmed's position on that is longing for him to linger there, and Yeah, I like that. I like that. And then we'll talk more later about the part of this sentence that says, insofar as home provides a space in which he does his work, as part of Ahmed's feminist optic on phenomenology, um, which is to say, what invisible labor makes the work of phenomenology possible and for whom.